Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the news that former Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi has been caught avoiding taxes to the tune of millions of pounds. Yet doesn't seem to be facing a criminal investigation. In fact, there are multiple levels of outrage involved in this story, and all the mainstream media can say, when they report on it at all, is Zahawi has agreed to pay more taxes. What, you mean like a negotiation was involved? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, Mr. Zahawi has been a very naughty boy, but don't worry, because he's a very influential, very wealthy Tory, so he's going to get away with it. The brief facts first, before I get on to just how serious a scandal this should be, and how it is yet more proof that both our national news media and Tory government are wholly unfit for purpose. So after an investigation by HMRC and the National Crime Agency into Zahawi's tax affairs, they've obviously concluded that Zahawi has underpaid taxes to the tune of at least £3 million. No doubt an accident, just like he accidentally claimed the bill for heating his private stables on public expenses. So now let's look at why this is more than just a simple case of rich person gets away with something that would land an ordinary citizen in prison. First of all, one of the bees in my bonnet a lot of the time is poor people who fiddle the benefit system will always face sanctions, which can easily include imprisonment, yet influential rich people fiddle the tax system, they get away with it. I'm not suggesting poor people should get away with it. What I'm saying is it should be the same for everyone. Because it's the same fiddle as well. It's exactly the same fiddle. It's not a different type of crime. Both forms of fraud involve taking public money out of the tax revenues unlawfully. Only the influential rich person who gets away with it steals much more. You know, you'll see people convicted of benefit fraud and sentenced to prison for like some few thousand sometimes. Sometimes it's tens of thousands. Sometimes it's quite big. It's not £3 million. Also, when it comes to benefit fraud, even if there's no evidence of intent, so no criminal prosecution results, you not only have to pay the money back, but 50% of the value on top of it in the form of a fine. And that's automatic, as far as I can tell anyway. No such rule for tax cheats, because tax cheats tend to be wealthy Tories. I mean, there is technically if they face prosecution, but there's no automatic, oh, you've underpaid this. We don't, it's inadvertent, but you've underpaid it. Here's a 50% extra. So an extra £1.5 million, please, Mr. Zahawi. Actually, little aside, and I hope this hasn't been doctored, but I haven't checked. See, courtesy of the Rishi Sunak parody account, a clipped tweet from Zahawi years ago boasting about how the Tories had just brought in anti-tax avoidance laws. Little ironic given the news now. Although who would really believe that the Tories had really brought in anti-tax avoidance laws when so many of them MPs were pushing for Brexit in order to avoid the EU's anti-tax avoidance laws, which were going to come online within a few years, and now have done, of course. But beyond rich Tory gets away with serious criminal offence, we should remember there are other aspects to this as well. Boris Johnson made Zahawi the Chancellor last summer. Now, just to remind people what happened. So Rishi Sunak had resigned. So yes, Johnson needed a new Chancellor if he wished to continue, and he wished to continue. We saw reports of Nadine Dorries entering number 10. We all shat ourselves. But she was just there as a groupie. We later learned that Zahawi had told Johnson, if you do not make me Chancellor, I'm going to resign as well. Now, Johnson's position was very precarious at this point. Wasn't necessarily hopeless. In the event it was, but we didn't know that at the time. And certainly Johnson didn't know that at the time. So he'd had 2 cabinet resignations. Very serious. More would increase the damage. So he agreed. He gave in to the blackmail. This was despite the fact that Zahawi was about to be put under investigation over his tax affairs. Officials told Johnson that the appointment would be unwise due to Zahawi's somewhat checkered past, financially speaking, as well as current allegations. But just as when officials have strongly advised against Johnson against a course of action, there's all sorts of examples, like promoting potential Russian agents to the House of Lords, for example. He just battered the concerns aside and insisted. So Zahawi, a man who had questions of potentially shady business practices going back years, who'd fiddled expenses, who had questions about his own tax returns, was given the job of Chancellor. A few days later, he was under investigation. In a way, by his own department. HMRC is sort of technically a little separate to the Treasury, but still. Then there was Zahawi's reaction to the news about his financial affairs. A gentleman by the name of Dan Needle, in particular, was targeted by Zahawi with threats for discussing the issues, as well as, historical question marks over the then Chancellor's head. Mr. Needle, of course, has been shown to be bang on the money. Unlike Zahawi, who seems to have missed a few zeros off his own tax returns. Even the reporting is poor. The Independent, which sort of broke the story as far as I can tell, proudly boasts that it also reported on the issue from the start. We've been keeping up with this. Still doesn't bring to their readers the gravity of the situation, though. See, their headline is, former Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi pays millions to settle tax row after investigation. It's important that they did say former Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi and not just former Chancellor, because we've had 3 former Chancellors in the last year. But, that's all it was. Pays million to settle tax row after investigation. No. Pays millions because investigation by HMRC and the National Crime Agency found that he had failed to declare taxable income to the tune of many millions of pounds. Why isn't the headline former Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi forced to pay millions in unpaid tax after being found to have avoided tax by investigation? Why doesn't it then go on to say that tax avoidance is a criminal offence for which there's supposed to be a fine of up to 200% of the amount fiddled plus the potential for imprisonment? Why, even in a paper that is reporting on this and not just throwing out more stories about Prince Harry to distract us all, are they not questioning why no further action will be taken? That wasn't even mentioned in there. Wasn't even mentioned in the article. Didn't even mention that this is a crime. Consider what's happened here. A man has improperly filed tax returns. A man who cannot reasonably claim to have made a mistake. Mistakes happen. This is a big one, mind you. But given that his income is many millions of pounds, he can easily afford an accountant to make sure the fee for that accountant would be negligible compared to the amount of money he's making. This man underreported income to the tune of millions. Public money was then used to investigate him. This investigation took half a year to complete with 2 different agencies, HMRC and the NCA. I don't know how much those investigations cost, but it will not have been cheap. Upon proving that Zahawi is underpaid tax by millions, the conclusion seems to be that Zahawi will pay the money that he should have in the first place. He'll not pay a fine on top as a combination of punishment to dissuade future transgressions and to compensate for the publicly funded investigation. He will not face a prosecution, which could lead to imprisonment and further dissuade him and similar people from doing the same. He will not even lose his job as chair of the Conservative Party and someone who attends the government cabinet meetings. At least there has been no news that he will, and call me a cynic, I do not expect there to be, unless, of course, there was a huge public backlash. A public backlash that is very unlikely to happen because the public have been kept blissfully unaware of at least the seriousness of the situation, if not the news itself, which really should be scandal. Well, you can't really call it scandal of the century. It should at least be scandal of the week. Now, this is very up-to-date news. As I say, maybe we'll see a criminal prosecution launch later this week, but I doubt it. Certainly, there's no likelihood of this right now. Certainly no expectation again amongst either politicians or the media, because no one's really talking about it. Certainly not from me. Maybe Starmer can make something of it in Wednesday's PMQs. Maybe it will be a suitable topic of conversation. Another chance for the former prosecutor to present a criminal case. Another opportunity for Sunak to try dodging questions. Bit of practice, But maybe even that would have limited impact on the public. And without any consequences, there's no reason for either Zahawi or anyone in a similar position to disclose their income properly. Even for Zahawi himself, what is there about the conclusion to this investigation that dissuades him from doing exactly the same thing again? Because it's almost like, well, I won't declare it properly, so I don't have to pay tax on everything. If I get caught, then I will have to pay the tax that I would have done if I was honest in the first place, but there won't be any extra sanctions, so you might as well chance your arm. It's a classic case of one rule for them, another for the rest of us. And then you have to ask, why was Zahawi so insistent that Johnson made him Chancellor last summer? Well, even without this, that was curious. I said so at the time. Why did Zahawi threaten Johnson in order to get the job? Even though at the time it was quite clear Johnson's position was very precarious. There was a very good chance, even at the time, that that job may have only lasted a matter of weeks. As it was, he was Chancellor for about 2 months. What did he plan to do in what was probably going to be a very short period as Chancellor? What did he plan to do? What did he actually do? So many questions left unanswered here. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.